tabs open at once? Well, today, we're going to break down how to close those tabs, quiet all that noise, and find some real, practical clarity in your thinking. Does this look familiar? Yeah, I'm talking about your mind. Sometimes it just feels like this, right? A tangled knot of thoughts, worries, and what ifs, all screaming for your attention at the same time. It's what we call mental chaos. And if you've been there, you know it is absolutely exhausting. And look, this is why getting a handle on that chaos is so critical. Ralph Waldo Emerson put it perfectly. You become what you think about all day long. Just let that sink in. If our minds are just a jumbled mess, what kind of lives are we actually building for ourselves? It's pretty simple. The quality of our life is directly tied to the quality of our thoughts. So how do we fix this? That's where this great little book comes in. Think Straight by Darius Foroux. Think of it as a no-nonsense, practical guide for taking back control of your mind and turning it into the powerful tool it was always meant to be. All right, so first up, let's really dig into the problem. What exactly is this mental chaos we're talking about? And more importantly, what's the alternative we're aiming for? To really get what this feels like, let's check out a story from the author himself. So he's moving to London, he's got an apartment all lined up, everything's looking great. Then, literally the day before he's supposed to move in, the landlady just cancels. Boom, just like that, he's homeless in a brand new city. And his mind just goes into a complete tailspin of panic and self-blame all over something that was totally out of his control. That is mental chaos in action. And this right here, this perfectly sums up the difference. On one side, you've got that chaotic mess of useless thoughts, the worry, the stress, the endless confusion. And on the other side, you have the goal. One single, straight, useful thought. It's the difference between being a slave to your mind and actually using your mind as a tool to get things done. Okay, so how do we make that leap? How do we get from the chaos to the clarity? Well, the whole journey starts with a single, totally game-changing realization. For this, we gotta look at the story of William James, a guy who would become one of America's most famous psychologists. Back in 1869, he was at absolute rock bottom. He was dealing with a crushing depression, even thinking about suicide. He honestly believed his brain was just wired for misery and he was trapped. But then, in 1870, he read an essay that completely changed his life. And this was the big idea that pulled him back from the edge. Now listen, because this is important. Free will isn't about preventing random thoughts from popping into your head. We can't control that. No way. It's about having the power to choose which of those thoughts you're going to hold on to, which ones you're going to focus on and give your energy to. This is the huge mindset shift. It's moving from that old way of thinking, I can't help but feel this way, like you're some helpless victim, to understanding, you know what? I feel this way because I've chosen to focus on the thoughts that got me here. Just that one idea turns you from a passenger into the driver of your own mind. And that, my friends, changes absolutely everything. Okay, so we get it. We have a choice. Awesome. But how do we actually do it in the moment? Well, Foroux gives us a super simple, practical toolkit to start making better choices about our thoughts. The whole foundation for this toolkit is a philosophy called pragmatism. And forget all the dusty academic stuff. Pragmatism is simple. It's all about what works. It asks one simple, brutal question. Does this idea actually get me results in the real world? That's it. It's all about consequences, facts, and what is genuinely useful. And that brings us to the very first tool, which is basically a bouncer for your mind. Before you let any old thought take over and start a party in your head, you just pause and ask yourself one simple question. Is this thought useful? So what does that look like? Well, useless thoughts, that's the stuff like learning something new and actively making your life better. All right, tool number 2, another super simple question, but man, this one has the power to wipe out like 90% of our daily anxiety. You just ask, is this something I can actually control? Because when you really stop and think about it, the list of things you truly have control over, it's tiny. According to Foroux, it pretty much boils down to just these 4 things. Your desires, your actions, your words, and your intentions. That's it. If a thought doesn't relate to one of these 4 things, it is not worth your time or your energy. Period. Okay, so we've learned how to filter our thoughts, right? We're looking for what's useful and what we can control. But what's the point? What's the end game here? Why are we doing all this mental heavy lifting? Henry Ford totally nailed it when he said, thinking is the hardest work there is. But as hard as it is, thinking is not the finish line. Not even close. It's the starting block. The entire purpose of getting your thoughts straight is to fuel effective action. And this right here is the core principle for living a practical, effective life. You always want to keep this imbalance where your actions are always greater than your thinking. Thinking is what gets you ready for the game, but action is what scores the points. Don't get stuck in your head. Get out there and make something happen. So I'm going to leave you with this one final question. After everything we've talked about, what is one clear, useful thought you have right now that you can turn into a concrete action today?
I have a question for you. When was the last time you actually used your brain?
That feels like a trick question.
Hmm.
I'm using it right now.
Are you? Or is it just sort of, I don't know, running? Because I had this moment last night, lying in bed, 2 a.m., just staring at the ceiling, and my brain was definitely on. It was replaying some dumb conversation I had 3 years ago, then it jumped to worrying about the economy, then it wondered if I left the stove on. It was loud. But was any of it useful? Absolutely not.
The classic 2 a.m. committee meeting where nothing gets decided, but everyone is shouting.
Exactly. Most of the time, I'm just a
We mistake mental activity for thinking.
Okay.
We assume that because there's noise in our heads, we must be problem solving. But usually, we're just grinding gears.
Which brings us to the book we're deep diving into today. It's called Think Straight: From Mental Chaos to Practical Clarity by Darius Foroux. And looking at your notes, this is not just another, positive vibes self-help book.
Oh, far from it.
Yeah.
Forough's the pragmatist. His argument is actually, it's quite aggressive. He says that the mind is a tool, like a hammer or a spreadsheet or chainsaw.
A chainsaw, I like that.
And if you pick up a chainsaw and you don't know how to use it, you're going to hurt yourself.
And most of us are just running around with mental chainsaws, totally unsupervised.
Precisely. The goal of this deep dive is to figure out how to put the safety on. We need to move from useless thinking, which is that 2 a.m. chaos, to useful thinking. And Foroux gives us a very specific framework for that.
Okay, so I want to get to the practical stuff, like the decision-making tricks, the email hacks, all that. But we have to start with the philosophy, because he roots this whole system in the story of a guy named William James.
Yes, the father of American psychology.
I knew the name, of course, but I didn't know the history. I always pictured a guy like William James as this, stoic, bearded intellectual who had his life totally together. But the reality was messy.
Messy is an understatement. If you go back to 1869, William James is a young man. He's a Harvard graduate. He has a medical degree. On paper, he is the elite.
Should have it all figured out.
In reality, he is broken. He's suffering from severe depression, panic attacks, hallucinations. He is, arguably one of the most miserable people in Massachusetts.
And he's a doctor. He understands biology, which I imagine made it even worse.
It did, because he looked at his own condition through this biological lens, and he concluded he was just a machine. He believed his brain was wired for misery, and because it was biological, he had no free will. He was just a victim of his own chemistry.
That is a terrifying place to be, to convince yourself that you are scientifically doomed to be unhappy.
He spent months contemplating suicide. He saw no way out. But then in 1870, there's a shift. He reads an essay by a French philosopher, a guy named Charles Renouvier, and something just clicks.
Okay.
James writes this famous entry in his journal. He says, "My first act of free will shall be to believe in free will."
Wow. I mean, that's such a meta statement. I choose to believe I have a choice. But practically, how does that fix the panic attacks? You can't just will away hallucinations.
Oh, no, you can't. And this is the nuance that Foroux really leans into. James realized he couldn't stop the stream of consciousness. Thoughts are going to flow in. Scary thoughts, weird thoughts, random noise. That's automatic. You can't build a dam across that river.
So if you can't stop the thoughts, where's the free will?
The free will is in the attention. You can't choose what walks through the front door of your mind, but you can choose whether you invite it to sit down for tea or you kick it out. You choose what to focus on.
Okay, so this is the birth of what eventually becomes pragmatism.
Right.
Now, pragmatism is a word we throw around a lot. Oh, he's very pragmatic. We usually just mean practical. But in philosophy and in this book, it has a much harder edge, doesn't it?
It does. The core definition comes from John Dewey, another pragmatist. He said, "The true is that which works.
The true is that which works. That sounds almost mercenary.
It's incredibly liberating. It means we stop obsessing over these abstract truths or principles that don't really exist in the physical world. Instead, we judge a thought strictly by its consequences, by its fruit.
Okay.
If you hold a thought in your head, does it lead to a solution? Does it make your life better? If not, then practically speaking, that thought is false. It's useless.
So if I'm worrying about whether my coworkers secretly hate me,
Does that thought help you do better work? No. Does it improve your relationship with them? No, it probably makes you act weird. Therefore, it is a useless thought. Delete it.
that sounds great in theory. But in practice, when you're in a crisis, your brain screams that the worry is necessary. It feels like due diligence.
It feels like protection, but it's usually just paralysis. Foroux shares a story about this that I think everyone can relate to. He calls it the London apartment incident.
Oh man, this one stressed me out just reading it.
It's the ultimate nightmare. Foroux decides to move from the Netherlands to London. It's a huge life change. He spends months planning, finds the perfect apartment, signs the contract, packs his whole life into a van. His family drives him across the border.
Everything is lined up. He's ready to start his new life.
And then, the day before he's supposed to move in, the phone rings. It's the landlady. She just says, "I changed my mind. I'm canceling the contract."
Just like that.
Just like that. So now he's in a foreign country, a van full of furniture. His family is watching him, and he is, for all intents and purposes, homeless.
Yes. Now pause there. The normal reaction, the reaction 99% of us would have, is to just spiral.
A complete meltdown. And Foroux admits he did exactly that. He spent the night in a hotel room with his parents, just beating himself up. Why did this happen to me? I'm such an idiot for trusting her. My plans are ruined.
It's the why loop. Why me? Why this? Why now?
But look at those thoughts through the lens of pragmatism. Are they finding him a bed? No. Are they changing the landlady's mind? No. They are burning energy for zero return. That is mental chaos.
So how did he snap out of it?
He used a visualization technique. He pictured his mind as a whiteboard. On the left side, he imagined a squiggly, messy knot. That was the worry. And on the right side, he just pictured a straight line, a vector moving from A to B.
From problem to solution.
Right. He asked himself, what is the useful step? The useful step wasn't analyzing his bad luck. The useful step was finding a roof. So he shut down the emotion, opened Airbnb, and booked a place for a week. Problem solved.
And the part of the story that just drives me crazy is what happened next.
The landlady called back a few days later. She'd changed her mind again. He got the apartment.
So the panic was literally 100% waste. It accomplished nothing.
That is the lesson. Most of what we call thinking about a binary system. No gray area.
But useless feels like a harsh label. I feel like my brain tries to argue that everything is useful. I need to replay that awkward conversation from 2018 so I don't make the same mistake again.
But do you? Or are you just punishing yourself? Foroux gives us a very strict definition for the useless bucket. If a thought is out of your control, it's useless. If it lacks a clear purpose, it's useless.
So, ruminating on the past.
Useless. You can't change physics. The past is gone. Unless you're extracting a very specific lesson to change a behavior tomorrow, dwelling on it is waste.
Worrying about the future.
Mostly useless.
Yeah.
I mean, you can plan, yes. But once the plan is made, the worry that comes after the plan is useless.
And wondering what other people think of you.
The ultimate useless thought. You can't read minds. You can't control others' perceptions. Delete it.
You realize you just deleted about 90% of the average person's daily brain activity.
And that's why we're so tired. We are running all these background apps that drain the battery but don't actually do anything.
So what's left? What actually goes in the useful bucket?
It's a very short list. 2 things. First, solving problems. This means treating a situation as an unanswered question and actively looking for the answer, not worrying about the problem solving it.
Okay. And the second?
Understanding knowledge. Internalizing information that improves your skills, your career, your relationships, your health. That's it. If you aren't fixing something or learning something, Foroux argues you should hit the delete button.
It's like Marie Kondo for your brain. Does this thought spark utility? No.
And Foroux is very honest about this, is that our brains are programmed to hoard the garbage. We have cognitive biases that make the useless stuff feel incredibly important.
Yeah, he talks about how we basically can't trust our own hardware.
We really can't. Take attentional bias. This is the idea that what we are currently thinking about just distorts our perception of reality. If you're in a bad mood or you're worried about money, you will literally see a poorer world. You'll notice the prices on the menu, the bills in the mail.
The scratched paint on your car, you won't see the opportunities.
And then you have confirmation bias, where we actively hunt for evidence that our negative thoughts are true. If you think, I'm not good at my job,
Is the problem.
you have to get out of the loop. Use images.
The drawing technique.
Yes. He references Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks. Da Vinci didn't just write, he drew everything. Mechanics, anatomy, ideas, and Foroux argues that drawing forces you to simplify. You can't draw a complex existential dread about the future. You have to boil it down to shapes.
He actually mentions that the book itself started as a drawing, right? That squiggly line turning into a straight arrow.
It forces clarity. If you can't visualize the problem, you probably don't understand it yet. And speaking of visualization, but then he engaged slow thinking. He looked at the system from above. Reality. If you're in a bad mood or you're worried about money, you will literally see a poorer world. You'll notice the prices on the menu, the bills in the mail.
The scratched paint on your car, you won't see the opportunities. It's the buy a red car, see red cars everywhere phenomenon, but for negativity.
Exactly. And then you have confirmation bias, where we actively hunt for evidence that our negative thoughts are true. If you think, I'm not good at my job, your brain will just catalog every single tiny typo you make today to prove you right.
So if my brain is actively lying to me, how do I break the loop? I can't use my brain to fix my brain if my brain is the problem.
You have to get out of the loop.
Yeah.
Foroux suggests stopping the words entirely. Stop verbalizing. Use images.
The drawing technique.
Yes. He references Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks. Da Vinci didn't just write, he drew everything. Mechanics, anatomy, ideas, and Foroux argues that drawing forces you to simplify. You can't draw a complex existential dread about the future. You have to boil it down to shapes.
He actually mentions that the book itself started as a drawing, right? That squiggly line turning into a straight arrow.
It forces clarity. If you can't visualize the problem, you probably don't understand it yet. And speaking of visualization, I think his maze analogy is probably the strongest image in the book for understanding how we get stuck.
I loved this one because we've all heard the life is a maze cliche. You're the rat running around, hitting dead ends, trying to find the cheese in the middle.
Right. And conventional thinking tells us, run faster, be a smarter rat, memorize the turns.
Before it says the prize isn't in the middle.
No, the prize is outside the maze.
Which completely changes the game.
If you are inside the maze, turning left and right, reacting to walls, that's conventional thinking. You're in the weeds. You're reacting to what's right in front of your nose. Thinking straight means detaching. It means floating up, getting a helicopter view, and looking down at the whole structure.
You have to stop running and actually look at the map.
And you look down and you say, wait a minute, why am I even in this maze? Is there a door over there I missed? You have to look at the system, not just the obstacles.
This connects directly to decision making. When we're in the maze, we make fast, panicked decisions. Turn left. No, right. Hurry. Foroux seems to be a big fan of slowing the heck down.
He is. He leans heavily on Derek Sivers here. Sivers has a rule. Don't trust your first reaction. Your first reaction is usually emotional. It's a knee-jerk response from your past self. It's not thinking, it's reflex.
Which goes against everything in our culture right now. Everything is answer this email now, Slack me back immediately.
Which is why mistakes happen.
Ugh.
There's a great example about Sivers in email. He realized he was spending 8 hours a day just answering quick questions. His reactive brain said, this is too much, I have to delete my email, go off the grid.
A nuclear option.
It is. But then he engaged slow thinking. He looked at the system from above. He realized, I don't need to quit email, I just need to stop answering. He could be reachable without owing everyone an immediate response.
It's that pause that saves you, and Foroux learned this the hard way. We have to talk about the Wim story, the $150,000 mistake.
Oh, this is painful.
So, set the scene. He's closing a deal.
He's working on a major contract. He has 2 contacts in his address book named Wim. Wim A is a loyal, long-term client who gets a special grandfathered low rate. Wim B is a brand new prospect who should get the standard market rate, which is much, much higher.
You can just see the train wreck coming.
He's rushing. He's in maze mode. He types Wim in the recipient field. Autofill grabs the wrong one, and he hits send. He sends the loyal client contract to the new prospect.
So the new guy opens it, sees a price that is way lower than what he was quoted, feels cheated, gets angry, and just walks away. Deal dead.
$150,000 gone in a millisecond because he didn't slow down to check the details.
Now, most people would spend the next month just hating themselves. Why am I so stupid? Why did I trust autofill?
And that is the crucial part. Forough says, don't ask why. Asking, why am I lazy or why am I unlucky, is a useless thought. It leads to self-pity. The useful thought is, how do I fix the system?
It's about the mechanics, not the person.
Yes. The lesson isn't, I am a bad person. The lesson is, I need to disable autofill, or I need to double check recipients. Small things become big things. You fix the input, you fix the output.
It's incredibly pragmatic. It takes the emotion completely out of failure. You treat your life like a machine that just needs a tune-up.
And that applies to money too, which is probably the number one thing people engage in useless thinking about.
Oh, absolutely. The 3 AM committee meeting loves to talk about finances.
Forough argues that most money worry is a complete waste of a non-renewable resource. Your time invested in a renewable resource money.
Whoa. Say that again. That's a powerful frame.
Money is renewable. You can always earn more money. You can get a new job, start a side hustle, sell something, but you cannot earn more time. Once today is gone, it is gone. So if you spent your limited time stressing about a renewable resource, you're making a terrible trade. You're burning gold to save pennies.
So what's the straight thinking solution? Just ignore your bank account and hope for the best.
No, you build a safety net so that you can ignore it. His rule is simple. Save 6 months of expenses. Once you have that, stop worrying. You've bought yourself freedom from anxiety.
And until then.
Until then, you focus on skills. He says buy skills, not stuff. Invest in your earning power. And don't be cheap on the tools you use for work. If you're a writer, buy a good laptop. If you're a carpenter, buy a good saw. That's an investment. Buying a flashy car to impress your neighbor, that's just insecurity.
It's all about utility again. Does this purchase help me produce, or is it just for show?
Exactly.
I want to touch on one more story that I think is really counterintuitive. The membership site. Because usually, entrepreneur stories are about grit. You know, I failed 100 times, but I kept going. Foroux tells a story about quitting.
He does, and he tells it proudly. He launched a membership site, did the math, and expected 1,000 true fans to sign up. He launched it, and he got 78.
Ouch. And then people started canceling.
Now, the hustle culture advice would be, keep pushing, grind, iterate, prove the haters wrong.
But Foroux quit.
He pulled the plug after 6 weeks. But, and this is key, he didn't quit because he was sad. He didn't quit because his feelings were hurt. He quit because he thought straight.
He looked at the data.
He ran the numbers. The obligation to those 78 people was taking up all his time, preventing him from doing higher value work.
Yeah.
The growth rate showed it would take years to be viable. The machine was broken. So he shut it down.
No regret.
None. Just, this didn't work. Next.
Only look back to learn, not to dwell.
Precisely. Regret is the ultimate useless thought. It changes nothing about the past, and it ruins the present.
So where does all this straight thinking lead us? Is the goal just to be a productivity robot who never feels emotions? Because that sounds efficient, but a little cold.
Not at all. The goal isn't robotic efficiency. The goal is peace. He calls it inner calm.
Which usually sounds like something you need a yoga mat and a trip to Bali to find.
Right. The eat, pray, love solution. Forough says you don't need any of that. You don't need a meditation app. Inner calm is just a skill. It's the ability to sit on the subway or in a chaotic meeting, observe your thoughts, and just not engage with the useless ones.
It really circles back to William James. You are the bouncer of your own mind.
You decide who gets into the club, and more importantly, you decide who gets kicked out. If a thought comes in that says, you're not good enough, you check its ID. Does this thought have a purpose? No. Kick it out.
I like that. So if we zoom out, what is the one big takeaway here? If you turn off this deep dive and want to start thinking straight today, what's the formula?
Foroux gives us a literal equation at the end of the book. Action is greater than thinking.
Action thinking.
Yeah. We tend to believe that if we analyze a problem enough, we've solved it. But Foroux says thinking is just the preparation. The value is in the doing. You can't think your way out of a burning building. You have to walk out.
It reminds me of that Steve Jobs quote he brings up near the end. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward.
That is such a profound place to land.
It really is. Because when you're in the chaos, when the landlady cancels or you send the wrong email, it feels like the end of the world. It feels like a total disaster.
But if you think straight, you realize this is just a dot. You don't know how it connects yet. Maybe missing that apartment leads you to a neighborhood you love even more. Maybe losing that client forces you to fix your systems, which saves you $1 million 10 years from now.
You can't force the connection now. You just have to trust that if you take the next useful action, the dots will connect later.
Stop trying to write the last chapter of the book when you're still in the middle of a sentence. Just write the next sentence.
That's a powerful challenge. So, for everyone listening, if your brain feels like a foggy mess today, ask yourself the question, is this thought useful? Is it solving a problem? If not, hit delete.
And go do something instead.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next one.